Chapter 1. It is said that when people are dying, they will remember a lot of things they have done in their life, especially those that they have missed, regretted, and the most unreconciled. Yang Chen was in such a situation now. The first thing that flashed in his mind was that after Yang Chen was wronged, he had no way to go and he wanted to sue. The culprit shouted proudly in front of Yang Chen, but Yang Chen was seriously injured and couldn't resist at all. I was the one who killed them and did the deed. So what? Who will believe you now? You are the murderer. The grin on Yang Lan's face was incomparably clear in front of Yang Chen's eyes. Let me tell you, I was the one who spread the news, I was the one who led the Taishanmen's young master over, I killed him, I was the one who framed you, so what? You are despicable. The seriously injured Yang Chen couldn't confront Yang Lan at all, he could only curse. What are you? Do you deserve the 10,000-year-old vermilion fruit? Why don't you take a piss and look at yourself? Yang Lan sneered, I was the one who reported you to the Taishanmen. You coveted the vermilion fruit that the Taishanmen's young master got, so you secretly killed him. The Taishanmen rewarded me with the vermilion fruit, but they chased you. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself for not understanding the current situation. If you had obediently handed over the vermilion fruit, wouldn't everything have been fine? You are just a bastard from my tenant family. Do you deserve the vermilion fruit? How dare you refuse my request? The second scene that appeared was the scene of Yang Chen's beautiful master being forced by the Taishanmen's leader to make her a cultivation furnace. The beautiful master swore to die and committed suicide. Yang Chen, go as far as you can. Don't think about avenging me, live, go. The beautiful master's eyes were so clear in Yang Chen's mind that even when he was dying, Yang Chen could feel the pain in his heart. Master, it's all my fault. It's all my fault for implicating you. Yang Chen knelt in front of his master and cried bitterly. Because of a vermilion fruit, Yang Chen was framed by Yang Lan, and now even his sect was implicated. The current leader of the Taishanmen suddenly discovered that Yang Chen's beautiful master was actually a rare postnatal full spiritual root. He immediately made the decision to make her his cultivation cauldron. The 4 nascent soul cultivators of the Taishanmen surrounded the Chunyang Palace, but at this moment, there was no way out. Yang Chen, let's go. The determination in his beautiful master's eyes did not change at all. With the blood escape technique, Yang Chen was sent out of the encirclement, and the last sight that Yang Chen saw of his master was the scene of her self-destructing Yuaning. Master! Yang Chen's miserable cries echoed for dozens of miles. The third scene that appeared was after Yang Chen had just ascended. Yang Chen originally thought that he could finally take revenge before he ascended, but he did not expect that he was alone after all. In the face of a big sect like the Taishanmen, he was still helpless and finally had to ascend. However, after ascending, he encountered the Taishanmen's support in the spiritual world and the immortal world. Even if you ascend, you will still be a waste. Keeping you alive is to set an example for others and let them know the consequences of offending me. The former leader of the Taishanmen, now the deputy leader of the Xianxia sect, looked at Yang Chen with a sneer and put a restriction on him. Everyone who ascended could see the miserable situation of Yang Chen, but the Xianxia sect was powerful, so no one dared to have any complaints. Anyway, it was Yang Chen who suffered, and everyone just regarded it as a lesson. And Yang Chen also suffered for thousands of years because of this. But soon, Yang Chen's memory returned to the happiest picture. That was the moment when his beautiful master gave him his first flying sword. Yang Chen, this bright ray sword was specially refined by me for you. You take it and practice diligently. His master's slender jade fingers pinched the bright ray sword and sent it to Yang Chen. At that moment, it was the happiest moment of Yang Chen's cultivation. The picture froze, and there was a heart-wrenching pain in his body. Yang Chen couldn't help but scream out loud. Ah! A long scream came out of Yang Chen's mouth, and his voice was full of unwillingness, which shocked all the people around him. Who dares to make a noise here? An angry shout came over, and then a figure suddenly appeared and suddenly saw Yang Chen, who was still at a loss with his mouth open in the crowd. There is no reason to make noise at the mountain gate, and you are so rude before you enter the mountain gate. You don't have to participate in this year's spiritual root test. Before Yang Chen could see what the person looked like, the person had already flicked his sleeves, and Yang Chen flew up involuntarily, dancing in the air, and flew out far away. With a thud, Yang Chen fell heavily to the ground and couldn't get up for a long time. But this severe pain also made Yang Chen understand that he was still alive. He was still alive under old Demon Yi's Sky Demon Explosion technique? This was simply a surprise. What was this little pain? Yang Chen was ecstatic in his heart. He was about to run his mystic art to heal and relieve the pain, but he found that there was no trace of spiritual power in his body. Under the great shock, Yang Chen almost couldn't believe it. He mobilized again, but there was still no movement. Did he lose all his spiritual power? This was big trouble. Yang Chen's heart suddenly trembled, and he suddenly thought of the scene just now. Mountain Gate? Spiritual root test? What was that? Only now did Yang Chen realize that he was no longer on the demon-slaying battlefield in the immortal world, but in a very unfamiliar place. The surroundings were beautiful, and the mist curled up. It looked like a good place to cultivate. Struggling to sit up, Yang Chen realized that he was wearing coarse clothes, and there was something wrong with his waist. When he touched it, he felt a sharpened hatchet. Boom! Yang Chen's mind was like a thunderclap, and he instantly understood that this was the scene when he participated in the spiritual root test of the Taishanmen back then. Under the bombardment of the Sky Demon Explosion technique, not only did he not die, but he also returned to his childhood. This is the outer mountain gate of the Taishanmen in the mortal world. Looking at the various familiar figures in the distance, Yang Chen was completely sure that he had been reborn. The reason why those people seemed so familiar was because he had forgotten them for a long time, a full 10,000 years. However, no matter how long it took, Yang Chen's hatred for the Taishanmen could not be eliminated. Yang Lan entered the Taishanmen, and later killed the young master of the Taishanmen, but he blamed it on himself. All the suffering after that was related to this matter and this sect. From a great principal golden immortal suddenly became immortal. In addition to hatred, Yang Chen didn't know how to describe his feelings at this time. However, one thing was certain, no matter what, he was still alive. 100,000 celestial soldiers and generals died, at least he was still alive, and he was still living in the most anticipated moment. Chapter 2. Not this year again, alas. But, did he really have to follow his old path? Was he going to be framed by Yang Lan, hunted by the Taishanmen, and insulted by the Xianxia gate? As soon as this thought popped up in his mind, a tempting idea suddenly popped up in an instant. Before old Demon Yi's body exploded, he said a lot to Yang Chen, who was also on the verge of death, including the demonic cultivation method that old Demon Yi used to improve his spiritual root. Fortunately, now Yang Chen was reborn, and he was also reborn at the time when he had not yet cultivated to become an immortal. That meant that Yang Chen had countless opportunities. On the way home with the crowd, Yang Chen secretly pondered. What bad luck! Old Demon Yi ran amok for hundreds of years in the immortal world, and tens of thousands of celestial soldiers and generals couldn't do anything to him. Finally, under the betrayal of a traitor, he was besieged by 100,000 celestial soldiers and generals. But even so, old Demon Yi still killed in all directions, and blood flowed like a river. In the end, when he was seriously injured, he used the Sky Demon Explosion technique and perished with 100,000 celestial soldiers and generals. Even if Yang Chen was a good-for-nothing in his previous life, he was still a good-for-nothing in the immortal world. After all, he was once a Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal. How could Yang Chen take these sects in the mortal world seriously, except for his own sect, Chunyang Palace? With the cultivation experience of Yang Chen's previous life, was it impossible for him to step into the door of immortal cultivation? At the very least, he could follow the old path and become a Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal again. Yang Lan, Yang Chen heard these two names again, and the dusty memories in his mind seemed to emerge from the depths of his memory again, and he couldn't stop them. Yang Lan, in particular, almost made Yang Chen hate his bones. If it weren't for him, his master would not be implicated. If it weren't for him, Yang Chen would not have been living a humiliating life of hiding from others. It could be said that at least 50% of Yang Chen's misfortune in his previous life was because of Yang Lan. The reason why Old Devil E was able to do as he pleased in the immortal world was because of his fire spirit root, which was one of the 5 elements. Coincidentally, Yang Chen knew about this cultivation method to enhance his spiritual root. He also had a fire spiritual root, and it just so happened that Yang Chen had not started cultivating it yet. Wasn't this a great opportunity? The attacker was very skillful in dealing with mortals. At the very least, Yang Chen could only maintain a sitting position and could not stand up for a long time. His body also seemed to be bound by something. It was not until the first batch of people who had been eliminated came out of the gate that Yang Chen felt his body relax and he could finally stand up. No! This moment of beauty must not be broken by anyone. Yang Chen's eyes showed unprecedented firmness. Even if I have to bear the burden of killing, even if I have to become a peerless devil, I will protect you and be happy and safe from now on. 10,000 years of forbearance in his previous life made Yang Chen's character extremely tough. At this moment, after making a decision, Yang Chen instantly calmed down. Looking at the gate of the Taishanmen standing tall, he sneered and turned to leave. Have you forgotten? Yang Chen. In his mind, a stern voice scolded. Have you forgotten how Master was bullied and humiliated in the past and committed suicide with hatred? Have you forgotten how you were framed by Yang Lan and couldn't get out of it? Have you forgotten that after you ascended, you still had to be humiliated like a slave by that guy from the Xianxia sect? Have you forgotten all about it? You have already been a good-for-nothing for a lifetime. Do you want to continue being a good-for-nothing in this life? Not bad, at least we still have a chance to try. Chen Zi is unlucky today. He was driven out without even a chance. A young man seemed to be very enthusiastic and said while helping Yang Chen pat the dust on his body. With this thought, Yang Chen's heart suddenly thumped. Even when he ascended to the spiritual world and then to the immortal world, it did not make him so excited. However, at the same time of excitement, there was also a dilemma. Forget it, this immortal fate spirit root is destined. If it doesn't work this year, it won't work next year. On the way down the mountain, someone sighed. That was a demonic art that required killing people to absorb the essence of life to supplement one's spirit root. Did he really need to cultivate demonic arts as a reborn almighty immortal? Old Demon E killed more than tens of thousands of people at that time. Did he have to kill tens of thousands of people to cultivate? With his 10,000 years of immortal cultivation experience, no matter how he cultivated, it would not be too bad. On one hand, killing people to increase the spirit root, and on the other hand, cultivating normally. These two thoughts turned in Yang Chen's mind and he could not make a decision for a while. Master, wait for me. When I become your disciple again, the tragedy of the previous life will never happen again. Yang Chen shouted in his heart, as if he was swearing, in the previous life, you helped me bear everything. In this life, let me help you hold up the sky. A series of sighs came from the mouths of the crowd. Several young people from the same village saw Yang Chen struggling and ran over to help Yang Chen up. Because he was driven out of the mountain gate after screaming, Yang Chen felt a little lucky. If he really faced the Taishanmen, Yang Chen did not know if he could hold back his anger. Now, he did not have any spiritual power. Even if he faced the lowest level disciple, he was not an opponent. As for not being selected, Yang Chen did not care. With the memory in his mind and 10,000 years of immortal cultivation experience, it was meaningless to Yang Chen whether he entered the mountain gate or not. You can't say that. The spirit root will only appear when the body grows and the root bone remains unchanged. Maybe I will have the immortal fate spirit root next year if I make up for it for a period of time this year. The one who spoke was naturally a person who was full of hope for his body. Okay, let's go back. Basically, no one had a chance today. Since someone took the lead, naturally everyone followed. We still have a month to travel, let's go. Maybe we will have a chance next year. Yang Chen let out a low roar. The painful memories that he thought he had forgotten all rushed to his heart in an instant. Master's sad and beautiful eyes when he was dying, Yang Lan's proud expression after framing him, and the scornful eyes of the big man in the immortal world that he was not even as good as a dog appeared in front of him crazily. Finally, the memory stopped at the moment when his master handed the bright ray sword to him. This year, Yang Lan and Yang Lan are lucky. Old Master Yang is going to be more powerful. His grandson and granddaughter all have the immortal cultivation spirit root, and they will not be able to walk sideways in the village. There were frustrations, and naturally there were complacent ones. When everyone talked about it, there was also an envious tone. Chapter 3. There was still nearly a month's journey from Taishanmen back to Yang village. When they came, the sect would take care of the travel expenses and transportation, but these eliminated people had to find a way back by themselves. The young people of Yang village were not rich, so they could only walk back for more than a month. Everyone had taken this into consideration. Before coming out, everyone had brought some money with them. In the small shop at the foot of the mountain, they bought a lot of dry steamed buns and wrapped them in a bag. This was the food for the journey. The farmers didn't think much of it for walking a long way. Anyway, it didn't affect their farm work. If they ran into it, they would have an immortal fate, and from then on, they would leap over the dragon gate. If they didn't run into it, they would go back and continue living. Yang Chen had already recovered his usual amiable nature. With the goal confirmed, Yang Chen was no longer that impatient. In the eyes of everyone, Yang Chen, who had always been indecisive, seemed to have suddenly changed into a different person. He was amiable and had a smile on his face, but he could easily make his companions follow his arrangements unconsciously. Everyone didn't feel the slightest difference, and only felt that what Yang Chen said was very reasonable. After randomly finding an excuse, Yang Chen left the team and set off alone. The other companions didn't think much of it. Almost all of them guessed that he wanted to go back to see if there was another chance, but no one said anything and let him leave. Naturally, Yang Chen didn't return to Taishanmen to look for an opportunity like everyone imagined, but he directly turned around and entered the mountain. With a hatchet in hand, with Yang Chen's tens of thousands of years of experience, he could easily find food and drink. The reason why he avoided everyone was that Yang Chen wanted to start tempering his body. This kind of tempering was completely different from immortal cultivation. It wasn't drawing qi into the body to practice the training of qi formula, but using martial arts external skills to practice the external boxing method to make the body stronger. As for the internal cultivation method, he didn't practice any of it. In the eyes of immortal cultivation disciples, practicing martial arts was completely the worst of the worst. As long as he cultivated qi and built his foundation, he would naturally have an endless amount of spiritual power to recuperate his body. Compared to external martial arts training, the effect was definitely 100 times better. Moreover, cultivating martial arts was purely a waste of cultivation time. If one had the time, it would be better to consider refining a furnace of pills or digging up a few spirit stones. Yang Chen was not stupid. With 10,000 years of cultivation experience, he knew better than anyone else how huge the difference would be if a strong body and a weak body cultivated at the same time. Perhaps in the short span of a few hundred years, there wouldn't be much of a difference, but when one really ascended, one would understand the horror of this difference. The foundation of cultivation was the most important, and the foundation, apart from the most basic cultivation spiritual root, was reflected in a stronger body. With a good foundation, it meant that he would be able to develop further. Training his body effectively was the first step. Even on the path of cultivation, one did not only pay attention to the cultivation of various cultivation methods, but also ignored the body. It was true that once one's cultivation reached a certain level, spiritual energy would be able to strengthen one's body. However, the effects of strengthening a weak scholar's body and strengthening a strong body were not the same. Similarly, even in a battle between cultivators, there was still a considerable difference between a person who practiced martial arts and a person who practiced sitting all day and had no time to care about anything else. This was the reason why Yang Chen used external martial arts to temper his muscles and bones before he started cultivating. There was another reason why he only cultivated external martial arts and not internal martial arts, and that was because old Demon Yi's demonic technique to improve spiritual root could only be cultivated before he started cultivating. There was no way to overcome the limitations of the cultivation method. Other than martial arts, there were a series of methods that could increase the flexibility and speed of the body, such as running, jumping, and so on. On the way back to the village, Xianxia either ran or jumped, and all the food he hunted in the mountains with a hatchet. After more than 10 days, Xianxia's memory became clearer, and everything from his youth came back to his mind. While training and running, Xianxia soon came to an ordinary mountain. This mountain was not far from a small county, but very few people entered the mountain. The mountain was barren, and there was almost no spiritual energy. There was a small mountain god temple, which had long been dilapidated, and half of the walls had collapsed. Xianxia stood in front of the mountain god temple, and after confirming that it was the mountain god temple in his memory, he smiled, pushed open the temple door, and walked in. There were some murals on the wall, but they were already mottled by the wind and rain. After entering the temple, Xianxia didn't care that the statue on the deity's throne had long been destroyed, and only a pile of mud was left. He first bowed to the original deity's throne. Although the mountain god temple was small, and although it was dilapidated, there were still people in the heavenly court. After bowing, Xianxia turned to the back of the deity's throne. He walked between the deity's throne and an old locust tree behind it, and measured for a while. After calculating the location in between, he began to dig. After digging for about 6 feet, he finally found a hard object. Xianxia was overjoyed, and he dug the soil bit by bit along the edge of the object, revealing a square metal box. The box had been buried in the soil for many years, but there was no rust on it. It was just dark and inconspicuous. When he lifted the box, it was heavy, at least 100 pounds. If it weren't for Xianxia's recent exercise and his body being strong since he was a child, he really couldn't lift it. This box was left by old Master Yang, who was Yang Lan's grandfather, when he was young, for his descendants. Once there was a disaster, it would be used as the capital for a comeback. However, now this capital has belonged to Xianxia. Next, Xianxia will take these capital, go back with his parents, and stay away from Yang village. When Yang Lan framed Xianxia, he even took Xianxia's parents as hostages. Xianxia had to pinch his nose and admit those things. In this life, Xianxia didn't intend to give Yang Lan any chance. At this time, old Master Yang probably hadn't told Yang Lan about these things, so it just happened to be convenient for Xianxia. First, he filled the excavated soil, and then Xianxia directly transplanted a small tree from not far away. Then he carried the box, walked to the woods on the side of the mountain, and found a place to bury it again. Looking around and seeing that there were no flaws, Xianxia followed the road and rushed back to his hometown. All the way, Xianxia's speed was not slower than those who walked together. When they returned to Yang village, Xianxia also happened to rush back. A month of effective exercise made Xianxia look a little stronger than when he left. Although he was only 16 years old, his body was not worse than an adult. The news that Yang Lan and Yang Lan, the granddaughters of old Master Yang, were selected by the Taishanmen caused an uproar in Yang village. Almost the entire county was shocked, and even the county magistrate came to congratulate them. For a time, Yang village was bustling, and it seemed that a grand festival was being held. In the lively scene of old Master Yang's family celebrating, Xianxia's family, who was eliminated, left in dismay. It seemed so inconspicuous. Chapter 4. Xianxia's family only had the surname Yang. They were not related to the Yang family's old master. The family of 3 hired a horse carriage in the county town. Carrying a few belongings, they quickly left the county town. Near the next county town, Xianxia dismissed his original horse carriage and hired another horse carriage in the new county town. They traveled to the second location and changed about 6 places. Finally, Xianxia bought a horse carriage. After traveling for more than a day, the family arrived near where Xianxia had buried the box. After resting in a suitable place for more than 2 hours, there was an additional box in the Yang family's luggage. Furthermore, it was placed in an existing box, so no one could tell. After that, they chose a direction and traveled for about 2 months before they arrived at the place where Xianxia wanted to arrange for his parents to stay. Fortunately, they had taken the official road. The family of 3 did not seem to be rich, so there were no robbers. They arrived at their destination safely. After this arrangement, no one would be able to find Yang Chen's parents in the future. In fact, they had already left the Qin country, where the Yang family was originally located, and had entered the Zhao country. For Yang Chen's parents, who were honest villagers, it was almost impossible for them to leave the Qin country. However, with Yang Chen's arrangements as if he could predict the future, they arrived safely without any mishaps. The Yang family's old master had a lot of money. Apart from more than 600 taels of gold and 100 taels of silver, the rest were all low-grade spirit stones. Dozens of kilograms of low-grade spirit stones were equivalent to tens of thousands of taels of gold. Yang Chen did not stand on ceremony at all. He bought a house, land, and servants. He arranged a large manor for his parents in a slightly remote but beautiful place. There were hundreds of acres of fertile land, dozens of servants, and hundreds of tenant farmers. The 2 villagers, who had never enjoyed a good day, suddenly became the people they had envied for their entire lives. Everyone greeted them as master and mistress. They could not believe it. This place was located in a remote area. Other than the people in the village, there were almost no outsiders who passed by. Even if there was a war, it would not affect this place. This was a place that Yang Chen had carefully chosen. Naturally, he had considered all of this. After arranging everything, Yang Chen was not in a hurry to leave. Instead, he stayed with his parents for half a year. In the past 6 months, Yang Chen had been training harder and harder. Coupled with the delicacy of the food, he seemed to have become much stronger. Yang Chen's entire body was bulging with muscles. It was impossible to tell that he was only 16 years old. After harvesting a season's worth of food, life in the manor was back on track. Yang Chen bid farewell to his parents and left his new home. It had been 9 months since he had been reborn. Thousands of miles away in the county, on the table of the old executioner's room, there were 20 taels of gold. Opposite the executioner sat Yang Chen. "You mean, you want to be an executioner, and if I help you, these will be mine?" The old executioner could not believe what he was seeing and hearing. How could there be such a good thing in this world? An executioner was not an enviable occupation. In fact, under the current hierarchy, an executioner was just a job that was despised by the gods and even worse than a beggar. No one would look up to an executioner on the streets. In addition, killing too many people was against the harmony of the heavens. Legend had it that after death, one would go to the 18 levels of hell. The old executioner could not believe that someone was willing to spend so much gold just to do this. "I was born with a tough life. The celestial master of divination said that if I don't kill enough people, my parents and family will die. Therefore, I want to use the identity of an executioner to kill some people and dissolve my fate." Yang Chen casually made up a plausible reason. "I only want to do this for half a year. After that, I will leave. You can do whatever you have to do." For half a year, he would kill people for him so that he could kill less. Moreover, he would be given 20 taels of gold. Even after deducting the bribe to the county magistrate, it was still a considerable profit. If the old executioner still did not agree, he would be a fool. He reported illness, applied for leave, and recommended a disciple. It only took the old executioner half a day to settle all of this. Yang Chen's well-built body made others not doubt that he could take on the heavy responsibility of an executioner. No one knew why Yang Chen wanted to be an executioner in the mortal world. Only Yang Chen himself knew. There was once a rebellion in the celestial world It happened a long time before Yang Chen ascended. However, Yang Chen also knew that it probably happened after he was born. At that time, the omen in the mortal world was a sky full of blood for a day and a night. Then, the world was in chaos and many dynasties changed. According to Yang Chen's information, after the rebellion in the celestial world, the immortal executioner stage had killed thousands of immortals. As for the immortal executioner stage, it was a unique execution artifact of the celestial world. To prevent the masters from using it to threaten the celestial world, it had always been operated by mortals. As for the person who operated the immortal executioner stage, it was naturally chosen from the executioners in the mortal world. If Yang Chen could enter the immortal executioner stage, he would be able to openly kill immortals to cultivate his demonic arts. The benefits of killing an immortal would probably be more useful than killing 10,000 mortals. Not only would he not have to bear the reputation of the demonic path, he would also be able to replenish his spiritual roots. Now that he thought about it, it was as if the heavens had arranged for him to kill immortals. Yang Chen got into the mood very quickly. On the second day after he was done, there was a prisoner to be beheaded. This was the first time Yang Chen killed someone on the execution ground. It was also the first time he was going to test old Demon Yi's cultivation technique. Although this was what the old demon said before he died, it might not be false. Yang Chen had to give it a try no matter what. Being an executioner was the best choice for killing people. Every injustice has its perpetrator, and every debt has its debtor. You and I have no enmity in the past, and I'm just doing my job. I'm sorry for offending you. Yang Chen's upper body was bare, and his head was wrapped in a blood-red scarf. He reached out and pulled out the death token from the kneeling prisoner's body and threw it to the ground. His right hand raised the ghost head saber that he had been holding in his right hand. Following Yang Chen's action, the people outside the execution ground immediately widened their eyes and held their breaths. The liquor that had been prepared was placed to the side. Yang Chen picked up the bowl and drank a big mouthful. Then, he took another mouthful and sprayed it at the ghost head saber. After doing all this, Yang Chen's eyes lit up as he looked at the prisoner. His body suddenly emitted a murderous aura, and it was as if he had suddenly become a different person. He raised the ghost head saber high up and slashed down. The crowd only saw a bright flash of the saber. They weren't even sure if Yang Chen had already done this. However, Yang Chen seemed to have turned back into the amiable young man. He actually took a new piece of silk cloth and started wiping the saber. The crowd was stunned. When they looked closely, they saw that the prisoner's head was still on the prisoner's neck. It didn't move at all. What was going on? While they were still in shock, a trace of blood suddenly appeared on the prisoner's neck. Then, the blood grew longer and longer until it became a line of blood. Then, with a bang, the head fell off from the line of blood, revealing a bowl-sized wound. Hot blood gushed out like a fountain, shooting up into the sky. The sizzling sound lasted for 5 or 6 breaths before the blood stopped flowing. Only then did the kneeling prisoner's body fall to the ground. Whoosh! There was a burst of noise, followed by thunderous cheers. Yang Chen took a deep breath. The cultivation method that he had memorized countless times in his mind suddenly began to circulate. An invisible aura rushed from the corpse into Yang Chen's body, turning into a warm current that spread to all of Yang Chen's limbs and bones. Chapter 5. While people were still discussing the new executioner's performance, Yang Chen was feeling the warm current in his body. Old Demon Yi's cultivation technique was not wrong, at least it had not been wrong until now, but he did not know how effective it was. After returning to his courtyard, Yang Chen took out a 5-colored stone from under the millstone. Even if someone saw it, they would not be able to recognize what it was. Only Yang Chen knew that this 5-colored stone was originally used by the immortal sects to test their disciples' acquired spirit roots. The innate spirit root was already destined, and the only thing that could change was the acquired spirit root. He placed his hands on it, and there was almost no change to the 5-colored stone. However, if he looked closely, there was a faint red light that was almost undetectable. This also meant that the acquired spirit root had really undergone an extremely slight change. After all, it was too much of a joke to want to change the spirit root so much just by killing one person. However, at least it proved that this cultivation technique was indeed effective. Even with Yang Chen's tens of thousands of years of cultivation experience, he did not notice any damage to the body when the cultivation technique was circulated, nor did he notice any hidden dangers. In other words, there really was no problem with this cultivation technique for the time being. The most amazing thing was that this cultivation technique did not increase spirit chi and dermic powers, and secondly, it did not refine the primordial spirit. Even if one practiced it, he would still be an ordinary person and would not violate the taboo of the heavenly court. He would still have enough opportunities to enter the immortal slaying platform. From the second half of the year onwards, Bandits were everywhere, and there was no end to them. Under the vexed situation, the imperial court directly gave a tough order to all the places to kill any bandits that were caught. Under unprecedented toughness, many bandits were caught almost every day. At first, there were only a few, then it became a dozen, and after a few days, they started to catch people in their 40s and 50s. In the county, other than the old executioner who was sick, there was currently only one executioner, Xianxia. Every day, Xianxia was responsible for cutting off dozens of heads. At first, people were still interested in watching the execution, but as time went on, no one had the leisure to do so anymore. Every injustice has its perpetrator, and every debt has its debtor. I have no enmity with all of you in the past, and I am only doing my duty, and I am only carrying out orders. Please forgive me. Every time before the execution, Xianxia would say something like this. Only by speaking clearly and clearly would he not be tainted by karma. It had only been a few days, but Xianxia was already very familiar with it. Gotcha! Xianxia chopped off a head with his saber. Blood gushed out from the headless neck, but Xianxia was not stained by a single drop. This was the result of his careful training. Over 100 heads had allowed him to master the technique of not staining a single drop of blood after beheading. Hiss! Xianxia took a deep breath. It seemed that the life essence contained in the corpse was also absorbed into Xianxia's body through this long breath. The cultivation method that had already been circulated over 100 times immediately circulated again, quickly bringing this essence qi to his limbs and bones, nourishing Xianxia's body and changing Xianxia's spirit root. Without the slightest hesitation, Xianxia was like a skilled worker on an assembly line. He walked to the front of the second prisoner, beheaded him, took a deep breath, and circulated the cultivation method. Then, the third, the fourth, on that day, there were actually 45 bandits to be beheaded. After Xianxia beheaded the last one, his body was already full of strength. After carefully sensing the changes in his body, Xianxia still shook his head slightly. No matter how much he absorbed the life essence of mortals, it seemed to be of little use. Unless he killed tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of people, perhaps there would be an obvious effect. However, although Xianxia thought it was of no use, it was a completely different matter in the eyes of others. Perhaps because of that cultivation method, every time after killing someone, Xianxia would be wrapped in a thick smell of blood that would not dissipate for a long time. His entire body was overflowing with ferocity, as if he had crawled out of a sea of blood. Not to mention ordinary people, even the soldiers around the execution ground would subconsciously turn their heads to avoid Xianxia's gaze when they saw him. Walking on the street, the residents in the city did not even dare to look at Xianxia, as they were afraid that they would not be able to avoid him. Whenever Xianxia appeared, there would be a scene where everyone would turn out to see him. This also saved Xianxia a lot of trouble, as at least no one dared to look at Xianxia. No matter how much they despised Xianxia, they did not dare to say anything inappropriate in front of him. He rested in the morning, beheaded people at noon, and practiced martial arts in the afternoon. After a regular month, Xianxia had indeed absorbed a lot of life essence from the condemned prisoners. Although he did not achieve his most desired goal, the benefits he obtained from the blood and qi in his body had already brought his martial arts to a higher realm. On this day, Xianxia had finished his execution in the execution ground. On his way home, he saw the sky full of red clouds. Today was very strange. It was just past noon, but there was already a sunset glow. Moreover, the sunset glow covered the entire sky, and the color was also as red as blood. Seeing this scene, Xianxia's face finally showed a smile. He had waited for such a long time for this day. The sky full of blood was something that Xianxia had only learned about when he ascended to the immortal realm in his previous life. This day corresponded to the upheaval of the heavenly court. After eating dinner, Xianxia fell asleep early. Strangely enough, no matter what kind of person they were, they all fell asleep early that night. Even if they were somewhere else and not on the bed, they would still suddenly feel drowsy. They would randomly find a place to rest and enter the dreamland. Xianxia, are you the executioner? In his sleep, Xianxia suddenly heard a shout. Yes, sir. Upon hearing this question, Yang Chen hurriedly got up from his bed and replied to the void. Only then did Yang Chen realize that he was no longer in his original room. You dare to execute all prisoners on death row? You can execute all of them? The voice asked again. As long as it is a death row prisoner, I dare to cut it, and I can cut it. Yang Chen replied proudly without hesitation. Follow me. The owner of the voice didn't appear at all. Instead, a dignified voice was transmitted. Go to the execution ground and execute the prisoners. The voice was filled with the domineering aura of a superior, making it impossible for anyone to refuse. Yes, sir. Yang Chen replied without hesitation. Then he strode along a path that suddenly appeared in front of him. After a while, he saw a lot of people surrounding the execution ground. At some point, Yang Chen's attire had been changed into the executioner's attire that he wore on the execution ground. A soldier, whose face couldn't be seen clearly, held a blood-red ghost-head knife in his hands and presented it to Yang Chen. Yang Chen reached out and grabbed it. Out of habit, he straightened the knife and touched the blade with his fingers. Before beheading someone, he had to at least see if the knife was sharp enough. Young man, can I have a word with you? As soon as he tested the sharpness of the blade, his belt was tugged gently by someone. At the same time, a fawning voice was heard. Yang Chen turned his head and saw a fat man dressed in silk and satin. One of his hands was gently tugging at his belt, while the other hand quietly reached out to Yang Chen's hand. When he opened his fat hand, a gold ingot worth at least 10 taels appeared in his palm. Chapter 6. Little brother, can you do me a favor? The fat man had an amiable smile on his face. He reached out his hand to stuff the gold ingot into Yang Chen's belt. I've already arranged for the others. As long as you let my son go on the execution ground, when you behead him, just cut his skin a little and don't kill him. You'll be able to fool the executioner, and no one will be able to tell. I'll thank you later. I'm just an executioner. I'm in charge of carrying out the punishment. I don't know anything else. Yang Chen's face turned serious. He pushed the fat hand away, turned around, and strode toward the execution ground. Kid, you refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. I can be a minister, but you don't know what's good for you. I'll make you suffer. When the fat man saw Yang Chen's refusal, his expression changed. He shouted fiercely at Yang Chen's back. Even if you're the emperor, what does that have to do with me beheading you? Yang Chen sneered and went straight up to the execution platform. He held the blood-red broadsword in his arms and stood there, quietly waiting for the order to carry out the execution. This time, it wasn't Yang Chen alone who would carry out the execution. There was a long row of executioners holding red broadswords. Yang Chen couldn't even see how many people there were. Such a scene was really shocking. What kind of execution ground would require so many heads to be beheaded? 3 drumbeats sounded, and the sun seemed to have risen. Yang Chen only heard the order, behead. Then he saw a life token thrown over. Every injustice has its perpetrator, and every debt has its debtor. You and I have no enmity in the past, and I'm just doing my job. I'm sorry. Yang Chen habitually said his work words. Then he pulled out the death token from the prisoner's body and threw it to the side. With a loud shout, he raised the broadsword high and chopped down. A human head immediately rolled far away, and the headless body slowly fell to the ground, blood still gushing out incessantly. After doing all this, Yang Chen didn't absorb the life essence to practice as usual. Instead, he stood there quietly with the broadsword, waiting for his orders. 19,372 executioners, 3,843 beheaded. In the void, a voice seemed to be counting and reporting at the same time. Suddenly, a strong wind blew in front of him. After a while, the dust cleared. Yang Chen was still at the execution ground, but the prisoners that had just been beheaded had disappeared without a trace. However, in the empty space in front of him, there was a beautiful and charming woman tied up. She was kneeling in the dust, and it was as if she was a flawless piece of beautiful jade. Her face was like the rosy glow of the morning sun, and she was extremely charming and full of amorous feelings. Around the beautiful woman were kneeling, and there were dozens of executioners dressed like Xianxia. They seemed to be waiting for the execution. Behead! There was another shout, and a life tablet flew in front of one of the executioners. The executioner immediately stepped forward. Just as he was about to swing his broadsword, the beautiful woman said, "I am innocent, please have mercy on me, General." The executioner saw that the beautiful woman was beautiful and felt pity for her. In addition, she was very sweet, so he called the executioner General. The executioner directly called the executioner until his bones went limp. His eyes were wide open, and he couldn't move anymore. The executioner was furious. He shouted at another executioner, "You, behead!" The life tablet seemed to have eyes, and it flew in front of another executioner. This executioner stepped forward, but he was also called by the beautiful woman. He was immediately captivated and couldn't move anymore. Dozens of executioners were all the same. The executioner's voice was filled with anger. Finally, a life tablet appeared in front of Xianxia. The executioner's angry shout was extremely clear, "You, behead!" Xianxia stepped forward and stood beside the beautiful woman. The beautiful woman immediately raised her head, revealing her beautiful face. She said in a sweet voice, "General, I am innocent." It was just a light exhalation, but it immediately revealed a numbing sensation that penetrated deep into the bones. Even refined steel would become soft and supple. Unfortunately, Xianxia seemed to have a heart of stone. He looked at the delicate beauty and ignored her. He only shouted, "Every injustice has its perpetrator, every debt has its debtor. You and I have no enmity in the past, and I am only doing my duty. I am only following orders, and I have offended you." After he finished speaking, he didn't care about the heartbroken cries of the beautiful woman. He raised his broadsword high, and with one slash, the beautiful woman's begging voice immediately disappeared. Her beautiful head flew far away, but it was no different from beheading a normal prisoner. "Good." Xianxia slashed down with his broadsword, but he heard a cheer in his ear. Xianxia didn't look sideways, but he laughed coldly in his heart. 3,843 people, and only 115 people were beheaded. The voice in the void was still reporting. "Xianxia, over here!" Someone shouted from behind. Without thinking, Xianxia followed. The other executioners who couldn't kill the beautiful women seemed to be ignored, and they still stood in the same place. After a while, they arrived at another execution ground. Here, there was only one executioner, Xianxia, and the prisoner was a middle-aged man wearing a dragon robe with disheveled hair. The strange thing was that there were no ropes on his body, and there were no soldiers around to watch him. He stood in the same place, not angry, and looked coldly at the approaching Xianxia. The soldier who led the way had already disappeared, and only Xianxia was facing this middle-aged man alone. However, Xianxia didn't say anything, and just stood there quietly. "Xianxia, behead!" The familiar voice of the executioner sounded again, and a life tablet fell in front of Xianxia. Without saying anything, Xianxia raised the ghost head saber and stepped forward. Seeing this, the middle-aged man's eyes widened, and a domineering aura appeared in his eyes. He shouted at Xianxia, "I am the emperor of the dynasty, the ruler of the 9-5, how dare you be so rude?" As soon as these words came out, there was a sound of metal, like the words of gold and jade, deafening. Those who were timid would feel their limbs go weak when they heard this voice, and they would unconsciously kneel down. Dong, Xianxia didn't care, and stepped forward to kick him. The soul of a Daoist golden immortal, why would he care about a little emperor? He kicked the middle-aged man to the ground, and stepped on him firmly. Then he waved the blood-colored ghost head saber. "Every grievance has its perpetrator, and every debt has its debtor. You and I have no grudges in the past, and I am just doing my duty and following orders. Please forgive me." As soon as he said this, Xianxia's saber suddenly chopped down, and the self-proclaimed emperor's head rolled far away. Ding, there was a crisp sound, and a small white jade pendant appeared under the emperor's corpse. The jade was smooth, and one could tell that it was a rare item. Yang Chen looked around and seeing that there was no one around, he laughed coldly in his heart. He grabbed the jade pendant and stuffed it under his belt. Then he stood there quietly, waiting for the next order. There are only 2 executioners. One of them looked straight ahead, and the other took the jade pendant. The voice in the air couldn't be heard by Yang Chen, and he was doing the final calculations. Yang Chen, the Heavenly Court's immortal slaying platform is still lacking an executioner like you. Are you willing? The executioner who hadn't appeared before now stood in front of Yang Chen and asked kindly. He even held a white ring in his hand and slowly handed it over. Chapter 7. At your command, sir. Yang Chen bowed and took the ring. Under the instruction of the executioner, he slowly put it on his finger. Once it was put on his finger, the ring emitted a gentle glow that enveloped Yang Chen's entire body. Then, it disappeared on Yang Chen's finger, leaving only a tattoo-like mark on Yang Chen's finger. This is the token of the immortal slaying platform. With this token, you can enter the immortal slaying platform to slay immortals. The executioner instructed expressionlessly. Then he pointed behind Yang Chen. Inside the immortal slaying platform, besides you, everyone else is to be slain. Go now. Yang Chen turned his head and realized that a path had appeared behind him, leading to a magnificent gate. The gate was more luxurious than any gate in the mortal world. On the thick pillars, there were even 2 roaring golden dragons coiled around them. In the middle of the gate were 3 large, flamboyant, blood-red words, Immortal Slaying Platform. Upon closer inspection, he realized that the 3 words were made of living flesh and blood, and they were still wriggling non-stop. Below the gate stood 4 fully armored soldiers, guarding the gate. Stop! Who dares to enter the immortal slaying platform? As soon as Yang Chen approached, someone immediately shouted. Yang Chen stretched out his hand, and the mark of the ring on his finger was revealed. Strangely, when he reached this side, the real body of the ring suddenly appeared, allowing the soldiers guarding the gate to understand. After seeing it, the 4 of them opened the gate and let Yang Chen in. After entering the gate, there was a blurry white light, and he couldn't see anything clearly. Yang Chen stretched out his hand, but touched nothing. After thinking for a moment, he strode toward the white light. The white light did not resist him at all, allowing him to enter. Only when they saw this scene did the 4 soldiers completely relax. One of them suddenly turned his head and asked in confusion, "Sir, he's not clean. He took things from the dead. Why was he chosen?" Unbeknownst to them, the executioner had appeared beside them. He looked at the ball of light for a long while before saying, "You all know who the immortal executioner platform is going to kill this time." He and the other person were the only ones who didn't practice favoritism and killed the murderer. They were also willing to chop off the demoness head. He even dared to kick the supreme being of the 9-5 to the ground before beheading her. The other person even kowtowed first before beheading her. The others either indulged the murderer, couldn't bear to behead the demoness, or didn't have the guts. There was no one more suitable than them for this immortal slaying platform. Taking things from the dead is always better than taking from the living. Furthermore, after entering the immortal slaying platform, do you think that a mortal like him will be given the chance to leave after killing so many immortals? The executioner stared at the 4 guards next to him. Do you think a mortal like him, after killing so many immortals, will be given a chance to come out? The guards stared at the 4 soldiers. Do you think that after killing so many immortals, a mortal like him will be given a chance to come out? Not only did he have to be brave, but he also had to have a weakness. It was rare to find such a suitable person. What a weirdo! Not only did the person have to be brave, but they also had to have a weakness. It was rare to find someone who fit these requirements. What a weirdo! Yang Chen stepped into the white light. It was as if he had suddenly stepped into a different world. His eyes lit up. An incomparably wide execution ground appeared in front of Yang Chen. To be honest, even in his previous life, Yang Chen didn't have the chance to see the immortal slaying platform. The immortal slaying platform, as the name suggested, was where the heavenly court executed immortals. Immortals who could enter this place only had one identity, and that was prisoners awaiting execution. Yang Chen wasn't an executioner in his previous life, nor was he a prisoner awaiting execution, so he naturally didn't have the chance to see it. In front of him was a golden blade holder in the shape of two intertwining dragons. The dragon heads were facing up, and the dragons' mouths were wide open. In the two open dragon mouths, there was a long, blood-red, peerlessly fierce saber. After Yang Chen entered, he scanned the entire place and was immediately attracted by this long blade. This blade was different from the ghost head blade that Yang Chen was used to. The blade was long, and there seemed to be lightning spreading on it. The large blade had the same effect as the ghost head blade. Its only use was that it was convenient for beheading. The black hilt seemed to have sharp teeth. It gave off a malevolent aura, as if a ferocious beast would devour it if he held it. Yang Chen took a step forward and grabbed the black hilt. Instantly, a frenzied killing intent surged into Yang Chen's heart like an avalanche. Countless ghostly wails and wolf howls could be heard. It was as if millions of vengeful spirits were expressing their anger. "I'm not afraid of the living, so why should I be afraid of the dead?" Yang Chen sneered. As soon as the surging killing intent entered Yang Chen's mind, it was as though it had run into a firewall. It was as if it had run into a dam. The fierce blade seemed to be slightly surprised. Then, it transmitted its will to Duan Lingtian. "Obey me, and I'll lead you to kill countless overarching heavenly supreme celestials. Even a great overarching golden celestial would be intimidated by your killing intent." One thing that could not be denied was that this ferocious saber had killed countless powerful immortals. Against immortals, it had a natural killing intent that could suppress them. Yang Chen felt a chill run down his spine, and his body began to tremble involuntarily. This was the normal reaction of a celestial facing the celestial slaying saber. However, since Yang Chen was a great overarching golden celestial in the past, it only took him a moment to regain his senses. His powerful will began to fight against the fierce blade's will. No one knew what kind of scene it was inside the immortal beheading stage. Yang Chen did not expect that after he entered the immortal beheading stage as a mortal, he would experience such a big trouble. The fierce blade had its own will. Needless to say, if an ordinary mortal entered the celestial slaying platform, they would submit to the fierce blade's will and become a slave on the celestial slaying platform. "Obey me." The fierce will was once again imposed, and Yang Chen's body could no longer bear this pressure and fell to the ground. Faced with the mountain-like killing intent, Yang Chen had to exert all his strength to keep his mind from being suppressed. The unwillingness, grievances, and cowardice from his past life appeared before Yang Chen's eyes again. It caused Yang Chen to shout from the bottom of his heart, "I'll never give in." His master's beautiful face reappeared before Yang Chen's eyes. She flashed a sad smile at him. In just a blink of an eye, the scene changed to the moment when Yang Chen had obtained the brilliant ray sword. "You're just a blade. I'm the executioner," Yang Chen shouted as he stood up. Chapter 8. All the murderous intent poured into Yang Chen's body and was absorbed by Yang Chen without hesitation. In his mind, Yang Chen only remembered one thing, and that was the sentence he had just shouted, "I am the executioner." Yang Chen's body had become a new battlefield. However, the scene was completely different from before. Previously, the murderous blades will had tried to influence Yang Chen on the blade and make Yang Chen yield to the will of the blade. Now, it had become the murderous blade fighting in an away game, completely entering Yang Chen's body. "Obey me. I will bring you to kill immortals." No matter what kind of temptation or threat, Yang Chen just guarded the clarity in his heart. "I am the executioner." This sentence directly determined who was the master and who was the follower. Even though the murderous blades will had used all kinds of methods, it could not do anything to Yang Chen's heart. Finally, the murderous blades will became weaker and weaker. Under the situation where Yang Chen was guarding his heart, it began to merge with the murderous intent in Yang Chen's body, which had killed hundreds of people in the mortal world. Once this murderous intent merged, it could not stop. The whole process was completed like a hot knife through butter. Not long after, the murderous blades will directly melted with Yang Chen's murderous intent. I am the executioner. Yang Chen's eyes gradually lit up as he said this resolutely. The murderous blade in his hand was already obediently held in his hand. Other than a smooth connection between flesh and bone, there was nothing else. Raising the blood-red long blade, Yang Chen narrowed his eyes and added, "You are just the blade in the hands of the executioner." A series of changes occurred, and the murderous intent merged. Yang Chen did not even notice what had happened to his body. Holding the murderous blade, he felt a monstrous murderous intent emerging. His whole body seemed to be shrouded in a faint layer of red light. As his eyes opened and closed, a sharp killing intent seeped out of his body, causing others to tremble in fear. This is? Yang Chen was shocked when he saw the faint red light emitted from his body. Back when they were besieging Old Demon Yi's body was shrouded in a layer of blood-red light because he had killed too many people. Although Yang Chen only had a faint glow now, he seemed to be overflowing with killing intent like Old Demon Yi. One look and one could tell that he was a peerless demon. Fortunately, I'm prepared. Yang Chen smiled but did not care much. Holding the saber, he walked forward. That high platform was the true immortal slaying plateau, where immortals and devils were slain. However, Yang Chen did not go up the stage directly. Instead, he watched from the side. The layout of the immortal slaying plateau was very simple. There was a kitchen for Yang Chen to eat and drink, a small room for Yang Chen to rest in, and a place to bathe and go to the toilet. Food and water would be placed there, so there was no need for Yang Chen to do anything. There was also a seamless heavenly robe in the room for Yang Chen to wear. It was made in the style of an executioner. It was dust-proof and waterproof. Everything that Yang Chen needed to live could be found here. The spacious execution ground was where prisoners were tied up. It was still empty. However, Yang Chen knew that this place would soon be filled with unbelievable immortals for him to kill one by one. Drinking water, eating, bathing, changing clothes, Yang Chen slowly finished all of this. Then he hugged the murderous blade and went straight to the immortal slaying plateau. After sitting down, he began to carefully study the ring on his hand. After entering the immortal slaying plateau, the ring remained in its original form. Yang Chen once had a ring like this in his previous life. That was a token of service in the heavenly court. Apart from that, there was also a merit accumulation card and a decent storage ring. The one on Yang Chen's hand was a little special. It was the only ring in the heavenly court that was only given to mortals. No one expected that Yang Chen knew these things like the palm of his hand. Who could know that in Yang Chen's previous life, he had experienced an extraordinary life? In this life, it was just to make those regretful things not reappear. With 3 thunderous booms, a huge crowd suddenly appeared on the execution ground below the immortal slaying plateau. Yang Chen did a rough calculation and found that there were several hundred people. Furthermore, the number of people was still increasing. Yang Chen looked at all of this, but didn't do anything. He still sat quietly on the immortal slaying plateau, closing his eyes to rest. With so many people appearing on the immortal slaying plateau, the murderous blades will in Yang Chen's body suddenly started to make a ruckus. Kill them! Kill them! The sudden appearance of a target caused the murderous blades will in Yang Chen's body to go berserk again. The kind of eagerness to kill creatures and strip off flesh and blood made Yang Chen almost unable to keep his heart. But Yang Chen still firmly remembered that he was the executioner. Moreover, he felt that the murderous blades will seem to be dissolving too quickly, which was a little illogical. Sure enough, after finding a target to slay, it appeared again. If Yang Chen had attacked just now, the murderous blades will might have taken advantage of Yang Chen's attack to invade his heart again. But Yang Chen forcibly endured it and sat still on the platform. The murderous blade had no choice but to jump out again. In reality, this was not the murderous blade's will, but the entire immortal slaying plateau's will. The murderous blade itself was also a part of the immortal slaying plateau. Ever since the immortal slaying plateau appeared, it had always been slaying immortals and demons. Its killing intent was so strong that it was almost impossible to resist. If it was anyone else, they would be controlled by the immortal slaying plateau. Unfortunately, the mortal who entered the immortal slaying plateau this time was Xianxia. He had long been prepared, so he naturally would not be controlled by the immortal slaying plateau. Guarding his heart, Xianxia had always maintained in his heart, "I am the executioner." No matter how the murderous will in his body struggled, it could not control Xianxia. The murderous blade in his hand, under the influence of the immortal slaying plateau, the blade trembled endlessly, as if it wanted to jump out of Xianxia's hand and slay immortals. Xianxia held it tightly, his other hand gripping the sword and saber, not giving the murderous blade any chance. Finally, the immortal slaying plateau's struggle ended in failure again. The trembling murderous blade slowly calmed down, and Xianxia's heart no longer had the will to incite Xianxia to kill those prisoners. It seemed that the immortal slaying plateaus will had no choice but to concede and admit Xianxia's identity as the executioner. "You must remember, you are just the immortal slaying plateau, just a blade." Xianxia once again solidified his confidence in his heart. "I am the executioner. Here, I am the one in charge. Only I can decide who to kill and when to kill." The immortal slaying plateaus will no longer struggled and obediently accepted Xianxia's will. The entire immortal slaying plateau seemed to come to life, and under Xianxia's control, it changed freely. "Very good, I am the executioner." Feeling this obedience, Xianxia held the blade and stood up. Chapter 9. It's actually you? A voice came from the pending prisoners, which made Xianxia very surprised. Did someone in the immortal world recognize him? "Who?" Xianxia pointed in the direction of the voice. With just a thought, a tightly bound gray-robed old man appeared on the immortal executioner's platform. As soon as he got on the stage, his body had automatically become the kind of kneeling appearance, waiting for Xianxia's knife to cut down. Immortals who entered the immortal executioner's platform had their cultivation crippled. Even a mortal like Xianxia could do whatever he wanted to these immortals with the power of the immortal executioner's platform. "A few months ago, you dug out a metal box from my temple and bowed to me. Have you forgotten?" The old man's clothes were tattered and didn't match his identity as an immortal at all. "Very few people go to my place, and no one bows to me, so I remember it clearly." When the old man said this, Xianxia also understood that this old man was clearly a landowner. The land wasn't big, but he wasn't small either. He could barely be considered an immortal. "So it's you." Xianxia smiled, but he wasn't in a hurry to swing his blade. He was the only executioner here anyway. The Heavenly Court's immortal executioner's platform didn't need to look at the time. When to cut someone down was completely up to Xianxia. "You're just a mortal, how can you do such a disgraceful thing?" The old land suddenly became indignant and loudly rebuked Xianxia. "You also know that I'm just a mortal. How can I make a decision on such a matter?" Xianxia caressed the blade in his hand and answered casually. How could he ask such a question? He didn't even have a brain and was so pedantic. No wonder he was just a land, and such a poor one at that. Rebelling against the Heavenly Court is disgraceful. The old man was still talking to himself, but no matter what he said, it was always the same two sentences, especially the words treason and heresy. He kept repeating them on and on. Heaven's way is constant, but the heavenly Tao is impermanent. Xianxia had nothing to argue with the old land. He just gave a reason. For many years, the important positions in the Heavenly Court have never been changed. Since the heavenly Tao is unpredictable, why is the Jade Emperor always the only one? The Queen Mother of the West is also her. So many masters have ascended, but no matter how high their cultivation is, they can only be the lowest soldiers or maids in the palace. If it were me, I might also rebel. This was the reason those artificial people used to oppose the Heavenly Court, so Xianxia naturally knew about it. However, as soon as he said it, he knew that he was playing the lute to a cow. Treason. This is treason. The old man was so angry that he couldn't say anything else. I don't care if it's a big rebel or a small rebel. I'm just a small mortal. I can't care about so many things. Xianxia smiled faintly and said to the angry old land, Senior, before you die, do you have any unfulfilled wishes? Maybe I can help you fulfill them. Wishes? The old land was stunned, and then he immediately scolded excitedly, "My wish is to tear those traitors into pieces. If I'm not included in those traitors, maybe I can help you fulfill some of them." Xianxia smiled faintly and didn't care about the old land's excitement. "Of course, you also know that you can't kill them all. I can help you kill some of them. However, killing them is to fulfill your wish. What good will it do to me?" The old land obviously didn't expect Xianxia to react like this. He struggled to turn his head from the execution platform to look at Xianxia. He asked in disbelief, Are you serious? Nowadays, the cultivation sects are inextricably linked to the immortal realm and the mortal realm. I have an unresolvable grudge with the mysterious heaven sect, so I must kill some of them. Xianxia was also very serious. "I swear on my inner demons that I will definitely kill the people of the mysterious heaven sect. If you don't have any other wishes, you can go in peace. Since you dare to swear on your inner demons, I'll believe you this once." The old land didn't think about how a mortal like Xianxia knew so many secrets of the heavenly court. He just listened to Xianxia's oath and believed him. "If you still have a chance to leave the immortal beheading platform, then go to my broken temple in the mortal world. There are a few kilograms of spirit stones that I hid in the ground in front of the platform. I've been poor for half my life. The things I left behind before I ascended are all yours. Do it. Every injustice has its perpetrator, and every debt has its debtor. You and I have no grievances in the past, and I'm just doing my duty. I'm sorry for offending you." Xianxia stood up and finished reading the words to the old land. Then, without further ado, he raised the knife in his hand and chopped down. The old land's head fell to the ground in the blink of an eye. Blood spurted everywhere, but not a single drop landed on Xianxia. He took a deep breath into his body. Old Devil Yi's cultivation technique circulated again, quickly absorbing and dissolving the old land's life essence. Immediately, a warm current rushed to the top of his head. Then, it circulated a few times along the Ren and Du meridians before disappearing without a trace. However, this time, even if Xianxia killed hundreds of mortals, he wouldn't be able to do it. With his eyes closed, Xianxia didn't open his eyes until the warm current in his body disappeared. Then, he felt something was wrong with the ring on his hand. With a thought, he found that the merit value on the ring had changed from 0 to more than hundreds of thousands. Xianxia's heart moved. This ring was a symbol of identity in the heavenly court, and at the same time, it counted merit value. Killing an old land meant that the rebels had already taken control of the heavenly court and changed the merit standard. Killing an enemy would naturally increase one's merit value. How much merit value the immortal had in the old heavenly court would increase for Xianxia now. However, hundreds of thousands of merit value was not a lot, but it was not a small amount either. Xianxia didn't care about it. This immortal slaying platform was densely packed with prisoners waiting to be executed. Wouldn't it be a land of merit value? The second prisoner was brought up. It was a small soldier of the heavenly court. Xianxia did not ask about the origin, but according to the example of the old land in front of him, he still asked, "Before the death of the body, Senior, do you have any unfinished wishes? Maybe I can complete 1 or 2 for you. Of course, the rules are the same. What benefits do I get from helping you? What benefits do you want?" Although he was just a small soldier of the heavenly court, he was probably a famous figure in the mortal world. He had quite a bearing. Before he died, he was unusually calm. "Anything. Cultivation techniques, things you left behind in the mortal world, the spiritual world, or the immortal world will do." Xianxia replied indifferently, "If you give me benefits, I might help you fulfill your wish. It's a fair deal." "What if you take the benefits but can't fulfill my wish?" The soldier snorted and questioned Xianxia. Chapter 10. Everyone here is a big shot. I'm just a small mortal, I don't dare to boast. Xianxia's tone was still indifferent. "I'll try to do what I can. What I can't do, my ability is limited, and I don't dare to give you any guarantees. However, All of you have entered the immortal register. After you die, everything ends, and you don't have to hope to reincarnate again. The things left behind are also completely not fated with you. If there are any left for the younger generation, I won't force you. Do as you please. His voice wasn't loud, but inside the immortal slaying platform, it was very easy for Yang Chen's voice to be heard by everyone. His words were naturally heard by everyone. Since that's the case, I don't have any wishes to fulfill. Do it. The Heavenly Court soldier didn't have any worries. He closed his eyes and waited for Yang Chen to make his move. Every injustice has a perpetrator, every debt has a debtor. You and I have no enmity with each other in the past. I'm just doing my duty and acting on orders. Forgive me. Yang Chen didn't force it. Since he had already said it, he couldn't guarantee that he could fulfill his wishes, but he wouldn't force them to accept it either. Yang Chen naturally wouldn't be angry if they weren't willing to accept it. In any case, after the other party died, their life essence would definitely benefit him. Kacha, the murderous blade flashed, and the Heavenly Court soldier also died on the immortal slaying platform. The merit points in the ring only increased by a little over 100,000. It seemed like the soldier's status was even lower than that of the soil. However, the soldier's life essence was several times more abundant than the soil's. Absorbing it in one breath and circulating his cultivation took several times the time of the soil's absorption. It was just two people, but Yang Chen felt a huge change in his body. As he expected, killing an immortal was tens of thousands of times more effective than killing a mortal. I've roamed the world without any worries. I don't have any wishes that need a mortal like you to fulfill. There's no point in talking, do it? The third person was very straightforward. He didn't wait for Yang Chen to ask and took the initiative to speak. Every injustice has a perpetrator, every debt has a debtor. You and I have no enmity with each other in the past. I'm just doing my duty and acting on orders. Forgive me. Since the other party was straightforward, Yang Chen was even more straightforward. After trying to get some words out of him, he raised his hand and chopped down. It was clean and neat. Apart from giving Yang Chen dozens of merit points and changing Yang Chen's spirit root and meridians, there was nothing else left behind. This old man has nothing to say, as long as you have the opportunity to kill a few more rebels in the future. The next mountain god was also a person who was unwilling to give up. After he finished speaking, he didn't wait for Yang Chen to urge him and said, "Before I ascended, I left a herb garden for my descendants. Unfortunately, I left in a hurry and didn't have time to inform them. I'll give it to you. It's on Mount Xianxia. This old man once laid down a restriction. If you want to go in, you'll have to go through a lot of trouble." The herb garden of Xiangyang Mountain? Yang Chen's mind slightly moved, and he casually replied, "The 7-step spell array, 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, 1 step left, 1 step up, and 1 step back. 7.5 turns, repeating 7 times. Only those with water attribute spiritual energy can enter the array. 7 by 7, 49 steps, 1 wrong step and you will be killed. Senior left a lot of good things. Thank you very much." "How did you know?" Hearing Yang Chen say almost every word, the mountain god couldn't believe his ears. Originally, he thought that only he knew about this, but in front of Yang Chen, it was like there was no defense. How could he not be shocked? "I just know." Yang Chen knew that it was because this herb garden was discovered 2,000 years later. A medium-level sect lost dozens of nascent soul masters, and they used this method to enter. Naturally, Yang Chen wouldn't explain the reason to the mountain god. He just continued to say, "After ascending, unless you are willing to sacrifice your cultivation, no one will be able to send such a message to the lower realm. Senior, I promise that this herb garden will not be covered in dust again. Senior, don't worry and go on your way." The incantation to collect it is. The mountain god looked at Yang Chen in shock and said the incantation to collect it. "Thank you very much, Senior." Yang Chen bowed again. "I can't see through it." The mountain god just said the sentence. At this point, no one thought that there would be any chance of survival. Everyone could see that this was the true nature of the immortals. Each of their performance made Yang Chen admire them. Every injustice has a perpetrator, and every debt has a debtor. You and I have no grievances in the past, and there is no enmity between us. I am doing my duty, and I am acting under orders. Please forgive me. Every time he was going to kill an immortal, Yang Chen would always say these words patiently. After saying these words, Yang Chen would then use the knife. Why do you say these words every time before you use the knife? The fifth person looked like a scholar, and he couldn't see his official position. He asked Yang Chen this question, and even said this sarcastically. Are you afraid that after killing the immortals, you won't have a good ending? Are you feeling guilty? I just don't want to have any karma. Yang Chen didn't care about the other person's sarcastic tone, and replied indifferently, although everyone died at my hands, the cause of death is not on me. If there is karma, it is on the person who gave the order. If Senior still has any hatred, it is better to take it on the real enemy. I am just an executioner, and I don't want to have any karma. You think I won't have any karma just because you said so? Although the scholar was tied up, his eyes were moving quickly. I'm afraid it's not up to you, right? Whether or not I want to have any karma is all up to me. Yang Chen wasn't angry, and just replied to himself, killing everyone is my duty, and I have a clear conscience. If I say I won't have any karma, then I won't have any karma. The strong confidence in his words made the scholar feel discouraged. After entering the immortal slaying platform, Yang Chen almost always referred to himself as I. Any of these immortals who were killed could be his senior, so Yang Chen only called himself senior, and called himself I, and nothing else. Alright, this old man also has an unfulfilled wish. Kill a few more people, and I will leave you some good things. The scholar chuckled, and then said to Yang Chen, in Mount Luqing's Danyu Valley, there are magic treasures and pills that this old man left behind. After you get out, you can go there to look for them. Whether you can find them or not will depend on your luck. Is there anything to pay attention to in and out of Danyu Valley? Yang Chen asked without changing his tone. Going in is easy, just walk in, and coming out requires the 8 treasures wind copper mirror to suppress the formation eye. The scholar's answer was also very fast, without any hesitation. Good plan. Yang Chen suddenly sneered, Danyu Valley, there is no exit. The 8 treasures wind copper mirror cannot come out. I didn't mean to deceive Senior, but Senior wanted to kill me, so I have to offend you. Ha! Junior, you are quite smart, to know that there is a trap. The scholar laughed. Coincidentally know of Danyu Valley, looks like you are not fated to die. However, this old man is already in such a state, and my life is at stake. I wonder what other than death is there to offend me? I am not talented, but I happen to know a crippled immortal absolute demonic hand. There was a sneer on Yang Chen's face, but his mouth said plainly, although I am immortal and have no magical power, but with the immortal beheading stage in hand, I can also display 1 or 2. Senior, before you die, enjoy it. The moment Yang Chen's words fell, the scholar's expression changed drastically. Not only him, even the immortals below the stage had a drastic change in expression. Welcome to Legends of Cultivation, audiobooks, where we bring ancient fantasy to life through storytelling. Follow the rise of heroes who defy fate, unlock mystical powers, and battle across celestial realms. Our audiobooks are crafted for fans of Chinese cultivation novels, filled with battles, breakthroughs, and legendary artifacts. Subscribe and be part of an unforgettable journey into the realm of immortality.